Hello, I'm Harvey, host of Franchising Brand Stories.
Hello, franchise friends. I'm Simon, the founder of FranRec.
And welcome to Franchising Brand Stories, brought to you by that chap. Brought to you by FranRec, specialist staff and executive recruiters to the UK franchise industry. And this is the show where we get under the hat of some of the top brands in the UK and in the world, of course. Now, this is also where we get to hear the stories. We get to hear what's behind the brands that you know and you love. And each week we take a lovely brand and we have a great conversation and a deep dive into that brand. And today we have the brand story of FranRec, our lovely sponsors. So Simon's going to tell us all about this. We are going to do what we normally do and break this up into a story that begins where we're at now, goes back in the past and looks at the future as well. So it's going to be a great story. Simon, welcome to Franchising Brand Stories.
Thank you, Harvey. It's very strange to be in the chair being interviewed by you for franchising.
You can't make a comment, can you?
I can't comment. So no, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll have to tie my hands or something. But I'm really, really pleased to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. As I said, we're very, very proud sponsors of Franchising Brand Stories, and to have the opportunity just to tell our story as well is just, it's kind of what you do there. So yeah, we're really pleased to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you for supporting us. It's fantastic to have you as our supporters. You're a great credit to the franchising industry, and it's going to be really interesting to see how your story has formed and how you've got to do what you do. So look, let's get into things today. Perhaps you could let us know, and it's where we always start, what is FranRec? Let us know kind of what it is and where you're at right now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, FranRec is does what it says on the tin here. We're a recruitment agency that specialises in franchising. We only work in franchising, and we provide search and selection for franchise brands that are looking to recruit and hire staff and executives for their franchise. Predominantly, we work with the franchisors. We have done some work with franchisees in the past, but our recruitment service is more geared up towards the franchisors, really. So yeah, that's kind of what we do. That's our passion, our love, our reason for being, and the thing that keeps a roof over our head.
Excellent. No, that's a great description. And it's good. I mean, it's fantastic to hear, as a sponsor and as somebody who serves the industry, as to exactly what you do, because people see your name each week and people know you very well. And most people in the franchise industry know you very well. But for those who don't, it's great to have this story. Let us know a little bit about sort of kind of a snapshot as to where you're at right now.
Okay. I mean, as we currently speak, we're working on about 4 or 5 vacancies for leading franchise brands, ranging from middle management positions, franchise support, and franchise recruitment roles, as well as some executive positions as well. But where we're at right now, we represent approximately, or we have on our database, about 2,000, just under 2,000 franchise professionals that are either actively or interested in looking and advancing their career within the UK franchise sector. So yeah, those 2,000 franchise professionals that we have are looking for roles, across the spectrum. Within that, you've got franchise recruiters, you've got franchise supports, business coaches, marketing people, finance managers, finance directors, any functional role that is fulfilled by the head office franchisor team, we have candidates for. And to date, we have worked with approximately 80 UK franchise brands, supporting them in their recruitment.
That's fantastic. I mean, 2,000 people. that's a big number there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, and again, that they're all people that are, franchising people.
Yeah.
They're all people that work within franchising, that got experience of franchising, and I guess that's really our USP. I mean, I do get approached to recruit more general roles, but for me, it's we specialize in one thing, and that's franchising, and that's where where we have our candidates represented.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, 2,000, first of all, that's a fantastic number in terms of a pool of expertise and talent to call upon when a franchisor is looking for that new person to drive their business. But does that number also tell us that it's tough out there, and there are a great deal of people looking for new opportunities? Or have you seen that number grow or change?
Well, it's fairly. I mean, obviously, that's not sort of 2,000 people actively looking for a new role. I mean, that is a community. That's the village that we look after of franchise professionals, and they're going to be at different stages in their careers. Some people will be actively looking for a new position. Others will always be interested in, keeping their eyes on, what's happening in the marketplace and any new opportunities. But it's a fair representation of the franchise talent that is out there in the UK market. We have to always remember, and sometimes I keep having to remind myself, that UK franchising is a very small village.
It is.
And so those numbers are realistic, but yeah, we've got a good representation of talent, of people at different stages in their careers, on different stages in the life cycle. We're very keen on attracting new talent into franchising as well, which is something that is going to come maybe in the future. And one of the things we'll be looking to do, sort of, going forward as well, is to how
we'll save that for the.
I'm going to save that one. You're exclusive, but yeah, it's not just about having a database of candidates. Yes, sure. That's really important to us, because when we get the instruction, we have that go-to place that we can start looking and start searching for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you said that it's a community, a small village. It's a great way to think of our community of franchising, whether that's our franchisors or whether that's the professionals that are in franchising and potentially looking at these new roles. We've got somebody here with us. If you are listening to this live, and it's February 20th, somewhere between 5:15 and about 6, then pop a comment in. It's always great to hear from you and to get your thoughts on our stories as we go through these. We've got the lovely Katrina Newman. It's always great to have you with us, Katrina. Katrina's put, sorry, arrived late. Looking forward to hearing Simon's story in full. So are we all. Oh, look, and we've got somebody else. We got the lovely Danny here. Great to have you with us, Danny. If I was in my normal Harry Potter-esque under the stairs office, I'd probably put your book up, Franchise Fame. But it's always great to have you with us. And Danny's put, same here. Hi, Simon and Harvey. Well, hi to you too, Danny. Right, let's have a little look. I'll tell you what, before we get to taking you back in time, I'm going to put up this question here. Do you cover the entire UK?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And also, I mean, we have also recruited for some of our clients that are looking at going out internationally as well. We have recruited in some international markets in the past, South America, would you believe, and Central Europe as well. But predominantly, our work is in mainland UK.
Fantastic. Well, look, we are going to get to the main part of the story, but before we do, if you've just joined us, this is Franchising Brand Stories, brought to you by FranRec, specialist staff and executive recruiters to the UK franchise industry. And talking of FranRec, they're here with us. FranRec.
Do you know what, Harvey, we look like an F1 pit, don't we, with all the branding going on here at the moment. I'm quite embarrassed, but never miss an opportunity to promote the brand.
I need it written here as well, don't I? I'm surprised you didn't stamp it on my forehead.
Absolutely.
It's what it's all about. It's about getting our names out there. Well, look, let's do it right now. Let's go back in time, right back, and let us know how your passion for franchising developed, how you got into recruitment. And let's also talk about your involvement in this wonderful show.
Yeah, I mean, my journey in franchising started in 1997. I was had a career in, like most people, sort of graduates from university graduates. You started your career in selling insurance, and I worked for Lloyds Bank selling financial services. But yeah, 1997, I found myself at the British Franchise Association, the BFA. And I started work at the BFA in 97, and I was responsible for membership recruitment. So recruitment, it was very much part of my journey from a very early age. But yeah, I was responsible for recruiting new members into the association. I was also responsible for looking after existing members as well, and coming up with weird and wonderful ideas and ways in which we could really drive and raise the profile of the BFA and what franchising does. So yeah, I'm a passionate supporter of the BFA, unashamedly so, because having had the privilege of working in the organization and seeing what goes on behind the scenes, and looking at the team and how they accredit brands, and it goes a hell of a long way. But that was the real spark for me, working at the BFA. My first introduction to franchising. I think, like anybody, if you were a student, I did a business studies degree, and franchising was sort of half an hour in a main lecture under the broad heading of distribution. So it wasn't really covered that well. So yeah, it was a whole new a blank sheet of paper for me. But yeah, I started my work at the BFA in 97, and was very fortunate to work my way up through the organization. So when I eventually left in 2004, I was the deputy director of the association, and it was a great career. But it's very difficult when you're exposed to so many fantastic individuals and inspiring stories. We didn't talk much about stories back then, but I got to meet a lot of individuals, both on the franchisee and the franchisor side. And the franchise industry, as everybody will tell you, is very infectious. It's very inspiring. And, I came to a point in my life in 2004, I'd probably gone as far as I could go within the British Franchise Association. I had a young family. My son was 4 and my daughter was 2. And, I just wanted a bit more. I wanted a bit more for them and a bit more for myself and my wife. And I'd always had the idea and really wanted to run my own business. And like most people, I was in my early 30s, and you think, I think I might have missed the boat, because most entrepreneurs start these things out in their bedroom in their parents' house and then grow them into empires. But anyway, franchising was my opportunity to really control my own destiny. And I grabbed it with both hands. And I was very fortunate. As I said, I had the inside line on the movers and shakers in the industry. And we'll talk about, the seed and the spark, but it was the individuals and their journey in franchising that really led me to choose the particular franchise that I went with. And in 2004, I invested in a driver hire franchise. I bought a franchise resale, and that was important as well. It had to be something, because I didn't have the luxury of having savings and investment that I can put into this business. I had to hit the ground running. So for me, the resale was the perfect opportunity. I could go in and I could really hit the ground running. And although I wasn't buying a job, I had that income, had those customers, had that goodwill and everything else. And that was really important for me. But yeah, I was privileged. As I said, I was able to make a really well-informed choice. And that choice was based on what I knew about the brand and their journey and how they came to be who they were, and the planets aligned. They had a resale opportunity in North London, where I was born and brought up, so I knew the area really well. I had a real empathy with the local community, and I chose a franchise that would lean towards my own skills and experience. My whole career was sales and marketing in the business to business sector. And this opportunity with driver hire really, really leaned on those skills and experience. So I was able to start something that I knew I'd be good at, I knew I'd be comfortable in, and I knew that I could make a success of it.
That's fantastic. It's great to hear sort of the beginnings of the story, you know, and where that started out. I mean, I wrote down a few things there. I like the idea of you coming up with some new and wonderful ideas at the BFA. I'm sure they were quite crazy. Can you name any of the ideas that you came up with?
I think National Franchise Week was one of my projects back in the day, working with the exhibition company. So a week focused on franchising, and it's great to see that coming back in as well. I was able to bring in some really good sponsorship deals as well. Really strong brands that were able to support the association, like Sage Accounting Software and Volkswagen. Volkswagen Commercial Vehicles was a brand that I bought in to support National Franchise Week. We did some other things as well. I mean, it was at the time where the internet was really, you know, the website was, you know, when I joined, it was just a business card on the, you know, on the internet. But what we did again was we changed it into a really proactive way of giving members tangible benefits for their membership. So lead generation through the BFA website, which I'm proud to see is continuing today. So yeah, I was very lucky. I was given a long enough rope and a blank sheet of paper to really be innovative and come up with some really good ideas and ways of doing things. And as I said, it was just testament to that faith that they had in me that I was allowed to do that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was just that, like everybody, you know, when you get to the pinnacle of your career, your employed career, and I just really wanted to run my own business. It's something I've always wanted to do, and franchising just presented itself to me, and it was a great opportunity that I grabbed.
I love it. I mean, you know, you said there about you were in a position to be able to make an informed choice, and probably the most informed choice of anyone, having worked at the BFA for all that time. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Making an informed choice. You know, that's why we tell these stories, because these stories help align a franchisee to a franchisor, or in this case, maybe they help align a potential candidate with a potential recruiter.
Yeah.
And it's really important to make that informed decision.
Yeah, it's a common theme that runs throughout my career, really. I'm very much a people person. I take people at face value, and as I said, it was the journey, it was the people behind the business that just inspired me, and that was a real trigger for me to invest in that particular brand.
Love it. Let's put up a couple of comments from the people that are here live. We've got Chris Goodchild here, and he's put, "Hey guys, love being part of the franchise village." We all love being part of the village.
Sounds like a 70s pop group, doesn't it?
We'll have to come up with a dance for that one. Katrina's put, "I'd forgotten you'd worked at the BFA. Good to hear a bit more about it." Absolutely. And you know, you mentioned sort of the inspiring stories you heard while you were there, you know, the great franchise stories that you heard. And I also like what you said there, that you thought you'd missed the boat. And I think franchising, you know, it definitely gives us that opportunity to buy a bit of time. So if we're a little bit older, we don't have to go through 10 years of developing a business and running it. We can, you know, like you did with Driver Hire, former guests on this show.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
No, love it. Let's talk a little bit more about how that story continues. So you're with Driver Hire, and you know, how did that go for you, and where did FranRec start?
Yeah, I mean, it went really well. It went really well. As I said, I bought a resale opportunity. It was a business that wasn't meeting its full potential. You know, the franchisee that was in there had really probably run its course and wasn't really engaged in network, wasn't going to the meetings, and I knew that I could turn it around. So it was the ideal recipe, really. It was a resale business that had existing drivers and it had existing clients as well. But what it needed was a bit of energy and enthusiasm to come in and really turn it around, and that's what I did. So I came in, I listened very, very carefully to, you know, so I went on the training course, and I came off the training course, and I've recounted this story so many times. It's one of the reasons why I'm passionate about franchise support, because, you know, the first day off the training course, I had a chap called Hugh that was in my office, and he was in that office for about 4 weeks, helping me adjust and helping me get to know everything, get to know the systems. And this was somebody that driver hire put into my business to really help me in the onboarding process. And then when Hugh left me and said his farewells and went back up to Bradford, I then had another Monday morning. I had a knock on the door, and there was these two chaps at my office door, and they said, "Hello, my name's Richard, and my name's Steve, and we're your franchise support managers." And I thought, bloody hell, this is amazing. And they came in, they found themselves a desk and started to make phone calls and started to phone up clients and candidates. And I thought, wow. This is real tangible support, and that is the thing that just sticks with me. All right, it was there. It wasn't just lip service. I was getting that hands-on support, and they wanted to make sure my business was successful. And it's why to this day, for me, the most, people ask what's the ingredient, what's the secret sauce to be successful in franchising, and it is the support element of franchising. And those brands over the last 27 years that have invested in that support infrastructure are the ones that are still here today and still growing, still thriving, and still, meeting the challenges of business today. So it was a fantastic experience, and I did really well. I followed the system and took advantage of everything that was available to me: marketing, the conferences, the regional meetings, struck up a really good rapport with my fellow franchisees as well. And ironically, I was seven years into the business, and it was my neighboring franchisee that came to me and said, "Listen, my nephew, I really want to get my nephew into franchising with driver hire, and if you ever feel like selling, then can we have a conversation?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, let's sit down and have a coffee." And it just came at the right time. It came at the right time for me.
Yeah. Sometimes these things do, don't they? They're just, timing is just right.
Yeah. So I agreed to sell the business to a neighbouring franchisee's relative, and exited the business after 7-8 years.
Fantastic. No, that's great. And, you entered as a resale and you exited as a resale as well, and sort of completed that circle. Just very, very quickly before we sort of move on to that next chapter of your life and your career in franchising, there's just brought up one here by Katrina. And Katrina's put, was driver hire the only franchise you seriously considered? That's a great question, actually.
Yeah, there was probably two that I really looked at: driver hire and Domino's Pizza.
Oh, okay.
Domino's was largely influenced by the individuals behind the business, and particularly the way in which they did their marketing and promotion. I was totally inspired by the way they did their marketing, having studied marketing at university. So it was two. It came down to driver hire and Domino's. Unfortunately, I didn't have the level of investment to go into. I could have done it, but it would have been very, very difficult. But no, for me, it was an easy choice. Really, as I said, it was a driver hire. I just loved everything about the business, and I wanted a business that was forward thinking, that always had, their finger on the pulse, and were the very best in what they did. So they always set out to be the very best in whatever they did. Yeah. And for me, I thought, wow, if I can just get that reputation and that standing in the business world by being a franchisee. So yeah, in the end, it came down to, really, it was always going to be driver hire. And the fact is, it was the resale, and it was the underperforming resale. So those were the two elements that I knew I could influence and turn things around.
And like you said, you knew that you were buying, with that resale, you knew you were buying into something that could generate revenue quickly. You hit the ground running. That was important.
Yeah, it was about following the system. Just follow the system that you've bought into. Devote your best endeavors to the business. Put your heart and soul into it, and work as hard as you can. And that was testament to that. So yeah, it was. I had a very, very good experience with driver hire. It was a superb franchise.
Fantastic. So your time then came to an end, and a positive end with driver hire. And what took you at that point from being a franchisee to looking at franchise recruitment as your?
I didn't immediately. Literally, I exited the business, and I sat there and I thought, well, what can I do now? And I thought, what, it's going to be franchising. Whatever I do, it has to be franchising. I genuinely thought I had a lot to offer. I could go and work for a franchisor, and I could work in, coaching, supporting franchisees in the field, and adding some real value based on my experience and knowledge of franchising, but also being a franchisee as well. So you get to know and understand what good support looks like, what good coaching looks like. So yeah, I set upon a journey of really wanting to work within the franchise sector, and I reached out to the most prominent recruiter in the industry, and I was really excited, really enthusiastic, and I just said, look, I'm ready. I really want to get back into franchising. I'd like to work on the franchisor side. And I was just kicked in the nuts, basically. I apologize for that, but it was true. It was, well, I'm sorry, you're an ex-franchisee. There are very few franchisors that want to take on a franchisee as part of their team. I'm not really sure. I don't think you've got a very strong CV and a very strong experience to come in and support.
Really?
I think, yeah, it was very, very strange. It was very strange, and I just thought, bloody hell, and it was my first experience of having my enthusiasm dampened down, really. And I thought, do you know what? I thought, I'm gonna, have a think about it, cool down, Simon. I thought, hang on a minute, what have I got to offer here? I know franchising, I know recruitment, because as part of my recruitment work at Driver Hire was a recruitment franchise, and as well as doing temporary staff, we did permanents as well. So I knew about it. I knew how to recruit permanent staff. And I thought, well, bugger you. I'm going to come in, right, and I'm going to set up a recruitment business, and I'm going to help those people that are looking already within franchising and that want to progress their careers. And I want to use my expertise and my knowledge and my franchising know-how to make sure that I can work with franchisors and search and select candidates that are a great match for their business and will be able to support and inspire their franchisees. So it was quite a negative situation, but it turned into a very positive situation because it was a light bulb moment for me. I just thought, hang on, if this is the best that the industry's got to offer, it's not exactly engaging people, is it? It's not exactly engaging candidates. And I thought I could do a lot better than that. And yeah, I built FranRec.
Fantastic. And you're absolutely right. If that was your experience of it, and you must have a huge amount of empathy, having been in the BFA, seeing things from different sides, seeing, good and not so good franchising done. And that's going to give you an empathy for both a potential candidate, whether they're in the franchising industry or whether even they're looking to get into franchising industry. And perhaps we'll talk a little bit more about those candidates in a minute, but maybe a good place to go now is perhaps talk a little bit about what you do for franchisors in terms of when they're looking for a role, how you use that experience that was gathered over those years. Oh, I'm sorry, when did FranRec start? What was
2013 in September. So I exited Driver Hire in August, and then FranRec started in 2013.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, yeah, I think that's going to be quite a good thing to do, to just explain, if you're a franchisor, one of the many that are out there, and perhaps not one that's worked with you yet. And this is something that you're watching, and you just want to have a little bit of an idea of how you go about finding a candidate for franchisor.
Yeah, I mean, people, we work with franchisors at different stages on the life cycle. So there are a lot of emerging franchise brands, for example, that, they've built the business on their own. They're the original founding entrepreneur, but now they've got to the position where they need to bring on additional resource. And it's a challenge to know what sort of skill set to bring in and what sort of personality to bring in as well. So I spend a lot of time with them, particularly newer franchise brands, just getting them up to speed on the market. For example, salaries, what good looks like in terms of a decent job spec to attract the right type of individual. So particularly for the younger franchisors that are looking at making the crucial first hire, we do a lot of work, and I share a lot of knowledge and advice and and given the opportunity to think about it from a franchisee's point of view, and what I would be looking for if I was a franchisee in terms of support and development work. So we do a lot of work with emerging brands, and obviously the more sort of the more established franchisors as well. I mean, we do the same things. They're a bit more sophisticated in terms of knowing what they actually need to come into the business, and we do a lot of thinking about personalities and values and culture to make sure that we get a really good understanding of the type of person that's going to succeed in the role. So, I ask them a lot about the who their A players are in the business, just as franchisees Zors do when they're recruiting franchisees to, establish their franchisee avatar, know where they hang out, know what their traits are. It's not dissimilar to how we approach the whole sort of staff and executive recruitment. So really it's about listening. It's about understanding and listening. And what I don't do, I mean, and as I said, I'm not a volume sort of CV recruiter. So if somebody gives me a role, I won't measure the success on, the volume of CVs that I end up sending them. I will always send a very small number of CVs, but people that I know will be capable of doing the role, because I've spent time making an assessment. I've spent time questioning them, doing my own competency-based interviews. So when I deliver up a collection of candidates, it's with my approval and my recommendation that these individuals are a good fit for the business. And I think that's what they are. That's what they're paying for, isn't it, at the end of the day? Because, they're looking to tap into my expertise and my franchising know-how, and to know what the individual has to do to be successful. So that's our sort of our unique position, and there have been occasions where people have said, look, just send me as many CVs as you can. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute. There's no point in me doing that. You might as well just stick an advert out on Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever it may be. If that's all you want is CVs, then there are other people that can do that for you. Mine is more of a tailored search and selection.
Absolutely, quality, not quantity. And I think of any franchise or recruiter, somebody who's in that role, or anybody who's in a sales role, right, can identify with that. Because if you're getting a sales lead in, and if you're a franchisor, you're getting a number of potentially interested people in, it would be better to have 10 that were amazing, really aligned with your brand values, really understood what it was that they were looking at, than to have 100 who just weren't appropriate. And you've got to filter those down. It's the same process, isn't it?
It's the same. What we do in recruitment for staff mirrors the franchisors. There is a lot of focus on leads. How many leads have you got this month? How many leads have you got? It's not just. It's about the quality, isn't it? So I get an instruction, and I've got 2,000 people that I have access to, that I can do a search and selection based on that information. So it's a very finely tuned process of introductions.
Absolutely.
That's the way modern day franchisee recruitment is done, isn't it? You know who you're looking for, where they hang out, their skills, experience, culture, values, and you go looking in those particular places.
That's it. It's who you know, isn't it? Let's have a look at a little question here by Danny. Let's see what you make of this one. Because you were mentioning there about working with both established but also emerging brands as well.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about an emerging brand, somebody who is new to the business, and you're thinking about what that first hire might be. Let's put Danny's question up here. Is it sort of standard across the board, or is that part of listening and part of those conversations to establish where the need is?
Yeah, it's part of listening. I mean, in my experience, most emerging brands, people, as I said, that are still founder operated, will need to bring in some franchising talent and expertise that can cover the whole spectrum of disciplines. You're not going to have the luxury of having somebody that is going to be your franchisee recruiter, somebody that's going to be your franchising onboarding manager, and somebody that's going to work in the field supporting those franchisees. So really, I would say the first, in most cases, we would look at bringing in somebody who can wear all those different hats. Excuse me. I said that.
Well, I was leading down to that.
You might want to call it a 360, franchise professional, but that is kind of where we usually get to in the point in the conversation. It's pretty clear that they need somebody who can adapt to those different functions. And as they become more mature, and again, when we work with more established brands and they have a particular need, they will have a need for an end-to-end franchisee recruiter, for example, but they will have a centralized marketing team that would work with that recruiter to build the funnel of right prospects. So the first hire can be an ops manager, but in my experience, it's usually a franchise all-rounder, really starting to get the franchising DNA into the business, the franchising mindset, the franchising culture. You need somebody that understands the relationship between franchisor and franchisee, because if you haven't worked in franchising, that is probably the biggest challenge you're going to face. You come into a role and you think, why aren't these people doing what I'm telling them to do? That's because they're a franchisee, they're not a member of staff. So it's usually, to answer Danny's question in a direct approach, it's usually a franchise all-rounder, somebody that can add value across those different functional areas.
Fantastic. No, love it. If you have just joined us today, this is Franchising Brand Stories, and today we are hearing the story of FranRec by the ever wise Simon Wise. It's been a fantastic story so far. Please pop on to our pages and you can get the full story. I'll also put a link to that in the comments. The QR code at the moment takes you to FranRec's website and you can check everything out there as well. Let's have a little look. We've got another question come in here from Katrina. Katrina's put, do you just recruit for permanent positions, or do you recruit for roles such as maternity cover or temporary projects? Oh, that's a great question.
Good question. I mean, it is predominantly permanent roles. I have recruited some more interim, where somebody wants a project manager for 12 to 18 months. I have done that in the past, but majority of my work is permanent. There are occasions where somebody will contact me and say, look, we just need somebody, to fill a gap for a few months, whatever. And it's not something I would engage on a commercial basis. I would just say, look, I'll put you in touch with somebody and you can have a chat with them directly. Our business is really based on placing permanent candidates.
Great, no, fantastic. A question I was going to ask you, you mentioned earlier on a little bit about perhaps who your potential candidates might be. And I know you mentioned a pool, or let's say a village of potential candidates. But do you think that there's a good argument to try and bring candidates in from other industries?
Yeah.
I mean, my journey, we're not here to talk about my journey, but my journey into franchising has come from another industry.
Yeah.
It took a little bit of time to understand franchising, what it is, but do you think that's valid for people to come across?
It's and that's something I'm going to talk about. Exciting plans for the future. No, but I mean, generally, as a point of principle, we do need to make sure we're refreshing the talent pool. It's as simple as that. We do need to do that. And there has to be a way of facilitating that transition. And that has to be done with the right institutions and the right people in place to do that, i.e. the British Franchise Association, because what we want is people to come into franchising, but to come into franchising with the mindset to doing it properly and to pursue a path of ethical franchising. So it has to be delivered by the right individuals, and everything has to be aligned with the core principles of good ethical franchising. But yes, there is a requirement. There are certain jobs that are more difficult to fill because of the shortage of talent, and that's one of the things that I'm looking at, is how we can fill those gaps and how we can transition people from other industry sectors into franchising that will be really good and would do very, very well in franchising, and then as an industry, franchising would benefit from their input as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned there a shortage of talent. I mean, that's interesting to hear. I mean, I suppose for anyone listening to this, and now we're not talking necessarily about a potential franchisor looking to recruit that next talent, but we're talking about somebody who's maybe in an industry that they feel their skills are transferable. Which areas or which sort of skills do you think you could do with more people in that pool of talent?
Okay, I mean, it you know, the standout area is in franchisee recruitment. You know, there is a shortage of good franchisee recruiters out there, for sure, and there is an opportunity for allied industries that run alongside to bring individuals into that. I mean, you know, you're a classic example, Harvey. I mean, you know, you spent your whole life in sales and marketing, and you've dovetailed really well into the whole area of franchisee recruitment. But the important thing is, it's not, you know, what we're not looking to do is bring in a whole load of stack it high and sell them cheap salespeople. We want people that can come in and really understand that it is a relationship. You know, the money to be made in franchising is not by selling a franchise. It's in the ongoing relationship that you have with that franchisee. It's really important, which is why. So if there's one area I feel that we need to future-proof the industry, it's going to be on franchisee recruitment and bringing in people that are really good relationship managers, really good communicators, really good people that can talk to individuals. Because, you know, marketing is becoming so much more sophisticated, you know, in terms of you being able to reach the ideal franchisee avatar. You know, it's becoming a lot easier, isn't it? I mean, the hardest thing about that is to define the avatar. But once you've defined it, then technology, AI, social media facilitates that pathway to reaching those people. And with your story behind that, it becomes a lot easier as well. So all these things coming together. But yeah, we need to bring a new breed of some franchise recruitment talent, I believe. And I think that's really important, not just to grow franchising, because, you know, we're stunted by the number of good people we have recruiting franchisees in terms of its growth, and the potential to get more people into franchising is huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think you're right. And, you know, maybe we can touch on that towards the end as to who they might be, where you're going to look for them, and what skills and experience they might need. I'm going to put up a couple of questions. One of them is going to be my favorite. And I think that we can touch upon this one. You know, we normally talk to franchisors about this, right? But you're in the business of giving people new careers, you know, a change of life, you know, something that's perhaps more fulfilling. I'm sure you've met, you know, countless individuals where they've had a real positive change, either changing their direction in franchising, coming into franchising. Do any sort of stick out in your mind, without obviously giving names and details?
I mean, there's lots of individuals that I've met along my journey whose lives have been changed significantly by franchising. I mean, I'm one of them. You know, a young father who wanted to do the very, very best for his young family, but knew he just couldn't achieve what he wanted to achieve in life because you know, through employment. You know, that was my life-changing light bulb moment, was to take on board a franchise. And I've met people on my, you know, and we've heard them on this show as well about how people come into franchising and how it changes their lives. You know, I'm very privileged to have met some really inspirational people. Everything I do in my business as FranRec is all about, you know, I'm always mindful of the fact that there is an individual, there is a person, a personality, a family within that process. And I do everything I can to make sure the process is as smooth and as less stressful as possible. But every now and then you do get to meet some people that have had a really rotten time. They've lost their job and they've gone into the job market. And just as I did when I you know, went in with all that enthusiasm and all that gusto, to be sort of slapped in the face with a wet fish to say, well, no, you're not as good as you thought you were, or you're not as marketable as you thought you were. And I met this chap A really lovely guy, really genuine, and he was absolutely browbeaten because he'd applied for about 200 jobs and nobody had come back to him and even told him they'd received his CV and everything else. And he was feeling like people I'm not wanted anymore, and his esteem went right the way. His self-esteem went downhill. Family man, so he had bills to pay. He got to keep a roof over his head, and we had a really good conversation, and we talked about his experience, and he had some superb experience in franchising. And I said, look, you're a gem. The industry doesn't want to lose people like you. So just stick at it and stay focused. And there will be something that we can do together to help you get back on that journey within franchising. Because, if you've got good people, you don't want to lose them. You don't want them to leave the industry.
No, of course, the pool of talent.
And I spent a lot of time talking to him and finding out about what he enjoyed doing. He loved climbing, and he loved the outdoors, and he loved spending time with his family at the weekends, camping and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, that's brilliant. And then one day this job came in, and it was absolutely perfect for him. It was a job working for a climbing franchise, an indoor climbing franchise. So I said, I've got this job for you. Have a look at it. Have a look at the job spec, and I will be absolutely delighted to make an introduction for you. And he said, Simon, this is perfect. This is exactly what I've been waiting for. And we introduced him to the client. He went through a series of 3 interviews, and he got offered the role. And he's in his 5th year now. And every time I go to a franchise exhibition, we always go and see each other and shake hands. And I said, how's it going? How are you doing? He said, I couldn't be happier. This is the job of a lifetime. And I'm so pleased that you remembered that I had a real passion for camping and outdoors and activity.
So it's the similarities. I can see how you've gone on that journey, because the similarities from being a franchisee, working with the BFA, to then letting people find their passion and being aligned like that. There's such a lot of similarities.
Yeah. But the story there, and there is a learning curve here for anybody that is looking for a job. And it is so easy to become demoralized because people just don't reply to you. I mean, ghosting is the worst thing that's ever been invented in business, and it happens so much. And particularly if you've got people looking for a job, they're not just looking for a job, they've got bills to pay and they've got worries and concerns and everything else. So the least you can do is reply to them and say, look, I'm really, thank you very much for sending your CV in, but I'm sorry, we've got, give them some feedback, help them on their journey, on their onward journey, which is why I'm always keen to make sure that we get feedback wherever we can for our candidates, because even if they're not successful, they've got to learn from that experience and use it and build upon it to find their real pathway and their next opportunity.
Completely. And the point you made at the beginning, rather than sending out 25 CVs of people that aren't quite right, who then may not hear because that person hasn't got time to do that. If you're sending them 5 and those 5 people are good, then, someone surely then has the time, hopefully they'll listen to this and understand that to get back to this.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not a volume CV merchant. It's not what I do.
Definitely not.
Save money, go and put an advert on a job board.
Absolutely.
It's all about a targeted search and selection.
100%. If you have just joined us today, this is Franchising Brand Stories, and today we heard the wonderful story of FranRec and Simon Wise's story as well, and it's been a fantastic story. We're going to put a link up in the comments, so if you are watching this and you've joined us a little bit later on, or if you're watching this in the future, please see that link and you can go right back to the beginning and watch it all again. So this is the part of the show where we're going to find out a Franchising Brand Stories exclusive. So Simon, tell us about the future. What's next for FranRec and for yourself?
Well, like any small business, survival is the most important thing, isn't it? No, I mean, seriously, we are, we're just looking at, growing our business by reaching out to more clients and getting the opportunity to work with more brands. But one of the things that I'm passionate about, again, is about future-proofing the industry, the good ethical franchising industry. And as I said, I have certain areas of concern about gaps and the talent shortage in certain areas. And what I'd like to do, and again, do this not just me, but with people that, you know, a better place to do this than I am, is to look at some sort of a pathway to allow professionals who are looking for a career change. You know, they might not be right for investing and starting in a franchise, but a pathway so they can apply their skills and experience into the franchising community. And one of those areas where there is a gap to fill is within franchisee recruitment. And there are certain allied industries. We talk about general recruiters, headhunters, for example, that will make really good, I believe, good franchise recruiters, but they need to be on a particular pathway. And to help them along that pathway, it would be some form of a training course or some franchising know-how and experience, an understanding of franchising and how it works. And I think if we can give people that pathway, we can encourage a much fresher level of talent to come into the business. Definitely. And I'd like to do that. I'd like to spearhead that and see if we can swell the franchise talent pool.
Well, I'm a big advocate of that. You know, I came into franchising and I don't think I'll ever leave. Well, I hope I won't. But, you know, when I think of people like key account managers, relationship managers that are in the sectors that some of our franchising brands are also in, there's some synergy there.
Yeah.
But look, I think we're going to have to come to an end now.
You want to bring that question up from Paul, by the way? It's quite an interesting. I don't know if you could.
Well, go on then. Okay. Go on then. As you're the sponsor, we'll go on a little bit longer. Let's have a look. Right, here we go. So this is a question from Paul. Good to see you, Paul. Sponsor of our sister show. Hi, Simon. I have spoken with people who want to become a franchisee and have not run or had business experience themselves. The franchisor I work with expects a level of business understanding of their franchisees. But what are your thoughts on specialist business coaches who have franchise experience used by franchising? What do you make of this?
It's an interesting one. I mean, I could be quite controversial here. I mean, it's just quite rare for me, really. But no, I'm a great believer in it. I'd like to see that coming from a franchisor in terms of the coaching and the performance coaching. I know there are certain occasions where a franchisee gets to a certain level in their business where they do need an external business coach to come in because some of the considerations are much bigger. But I don't know. I'm just a great believer. As I said, a lot of that, I'd like to see that being invested in by the franchisor. Any support and business coaching can be undertaken by the franchisor. You know, when I went into my driver hire business, I didn't understand, you know, some of the intricacies around business, but they were tackled and they were covered within the initial training. Things like finance, for example. They were tackled in the initial training, and then we had a regional finance manager who would then come in and build upon our knowledge. So I know not every franchisor is capable of doing that, but I'd like to see a lot more coming from the franchisor rather than relying on outside business coaches.
Love it.
That's just my personal opinion.
No, great question there, Paul, and thank you very much for that. But we have now come to the end of today's session. We don't like to keep people longer than about 50 minutes. Simon's broken the mold here. But it's been a fantastic conversation. I'd first of all like to thank everyone who has been with us live today. It's always fantastic to have you with us. And I'd also like to thank our wonderful sponsor and my good friend, Simon Wise, for sharing your story today. Thanks so much, Simon.
Absolute pleasure, H. Thank you very much indeed. And we're very, very proud to support franchising brand stories. And long may it continue.
Excellent. Before we talk about what's happening next week and who's on next week, if you've got any final thoughts to share with our audience, with people who are going to watch this in the future about the industry and about, please do that now.
I think I pretty much covered everything, but it depends on the audience, isn't it? I mean, if you're a prospective franchisee looking on this,
Yeah.
you've got to choose very carefully. You've got to make that choice. But fortunately, we're in an environment now where you can find out a lot of information. And if you're a franchisor, as I said, what I believe generally your mindset should be, or one of your core values that we talked about, would be to exist to make sure your franchisees are successful. So do everything you can to make sure your franchisees are successful.
Love it. I think that is a perfect place to end. So we will do that. And I just want to talk about what's happening next week on our sister show, on the Franchise Show. We are going to be talking, how do your franchisees feel? Which is going to be a great conversation and a very important one. So please join us Tuesday, 25th of February, 5:15 GMT for that one. And on this lovely show next week, we are going to be talking to Tab, the alternative board, which is going to be a fantastic conversation, hearing the brand story there. So really looking forward to that one. That will be on Thursday, the 27th of February, again, 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST. So until next time, my friends, take fantastic care and cheerio.